Hello and welcome in to the Full 10 Yards Betting Podcast. I'm Liam, your host, and I'm going to apologise in advance for my caveman-like Wi-Fi that I seem to be having this evening. As always, joining me on this podcast is, I like this intro, is my friend and your friend, the man who wins you plenty of money, hopefully. It's Adam, aka Touchdown Tips. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. Yeah, not too sure on the winning loads of money thing, but I did get two out of four last week, which was about as good as we did. It was another tough week for betting. It was lots of upsets again.
Hmm. Yeah, it was definitely. Yeah, we went. Me and you. I'm going to say we went 4 of 8, which looks better than the 5 of 12 we did if you include Tim's pick. But yeah, I'm quite
Yeah.
happy to get. This is the first week I've got more than one, so I feel like I'm on a upward trend, but I'm not sure how upward it is. We'll see after this week's. Yeah, but I had the Chiefs -3.5. You had the Colts -1.5. And then I think Dak Prescott over passing attempts and Justice Hill over receiving yards, was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Seem to be our winners. So, yeah, we'll see if we can win some money. One of us may have gone back to the well with that one of those bets, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. I can't start the pod of asking how you feel about the NFL season when your team sat here at 0-3, mate. Is it tragic? You now want to kind of just win money and bet, or are you still optimistic?
I'll be honest, I was tempted to take down all this stuff in the background before this podcast. I don't think they really deserve it at the moment. Yeah, Monday night, getting up at 1 in the morning to watch the worst defense that anyone's ever seen was a tough one. But on the plus side, Ravens have got one win, the Browns have got one win, the Steelers have scored 20 points all season, they're 3-0 at the top of the left table. But the division is definitely not dead. It requires a win over the Panthers tomorrow, which on Sunday, sorry, which I'm not entirely confident over now that Andy Dalton's in there. But that's where we are at the moment. So yeah, it's desperation time. A win is required. I think we're already down at 2.5% chance of making the playoffs statistically. But yeah, as I say, the division is nowhere near dead because the two teams that I think are probably the better of the three remaining have both started terribly, whereas the Steelers' elite defense has been dominating some terrible, terrible teams that they've been coming up against. So it's definitely not dead. I'm trying to stay positive, which is rare for me. But yeah, beating Andy Dalton is key this weekend.
Yeah, the Andy Dalton revenge game is key. Yeah, because 0-4 is awful for anyone, and then if the Steelers win and make 4-0, even though I think everyone's kind of doubting their long-term credentials, it's just a hard thing to turn back around, then, isn't it? But yeah, you should beat the Panthers. You should have some level of faith in yourself. We'll see how you feel on Sunday at like 8 p.m. maybe.
Should have beaten the Patriots, should have beaten the Commanders, and look where that went. So yeah, my faith is somehow waning.
Cool. Well, let's move off Bengals chat because we want to keep you. We want Adam to come back next week, so we want to talk about some bets. And as always, we're going to go through game of the week first, which Adam's nicely made a graphic for, which we'll show in a minute for anyone watching on YouTube. The game of the week we've gone for easily, I think, the best game when you look at the names on this slate. It is the Ravens versus the Bills. Two teams, I think. It's maybe not as exciting as the game was 3 or 4 weeks ago, how the Ravens have started, but again, they looked okay against the Cowboys last week. Bills look probably the best team in the NFL, which makes me feel good after my Bills kind of propaganda I was saying this season about how good they're going to be. How do you think this game looks before we talk about any sort of bets? Is it going to be a kind of high scoring game we'd have seen 2 or 3 years ago? Are we going to see a back and forth of defenses like this season's been? Like, how do you feel like this game's going to go for anyone who wants to think about betting things like totals and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think point fest really. Yeah, I still don't rate the Bills defense too well. They've obviously come up against some pretty poor teams, and done well against them. Fair play, but yeah, I think that Lamar and the Ravens will be able to keep up with Josh Allen. Obviously, Josh Allen is doing it a lot himself this time around. Obviously, the wide receivers aren't studs now anymore. But they're doing well. They're doing a very good job, and obviously they got the run game going with James Cook on the ground as well. So yeah, I think I'm hoping. Obviously, Sunday night football, I probably won't be up for it, but it should be a fun, exciting, high-scoring game. I think.
Yeah, the total's 46.5 and the spread's Ravens -2.5, which I think actually slightly surprised me. I don't know if that's gone up and down this week from a spread perspective. I think even my best bets actually changed because the spread's changed slightly since then. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it'll be more likely to be points. I think the middle of the defense for the Bills is kind of all over the place. They're down to like 4 or 5 linebackers again, like they were in the playoffs last season. Cornerback room again is a little bit depleted with injuries. But yeah, I think that'll probably lead to some points the other way. And then from the other perspective, you've got the Ravens defense, which looks quite good, but they're not getting the level of pass rush that they probably got last season under Mike McDonald. So yeah, I'm with you. I think I'll be favouring points, but I don't know if we always say that just because we're trying to get an exciting game of football on Sunday night. But I think points might be the way. Quite an important game for the Ravens as well because it's the Ravens Bengals the week after. If the Ravens don't win this game and the Bengals do win, both teams are going into that game 1-3, and then it's almost, if you lose that game, your season's on the line at that point. So I do think this game is way more important for the Ravens' kind of long-term hopes than it is the Bills.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as you say, like especially if the Steelers win as well and go 3 games ahead, it would be of the Ravens. And yeah, it's been a weird season for the Ravens. Obviously, could and should have beaten the Chiefs in week 1, dropped to the Raiders somehow after having a big lead, and then obviously dominated the Cowboys for 3 quarters last week before taking the foot off the gas. So they've shown both sides of them. They've shown they can do it, and they've shown that they can completely mess it up. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. Yeah, I think I read. Obviously, you're talking about the linebackers. I think I read that the Ravens have run the 3rd amount of run plays, and they've got some crazy potential stats for Lamar and Derrick Henry. If they both hit 300 rushing yards, they over the first 4 games of the season, they'll be the first team since 2006 to do it, when Michael Vick was the Falcons quarterback. So yeah, obviously they've got the run game going well. Derrick Henry scored every game so far this season. He looked a lot better last week overall. As I said in the previous podcast, he's been doing nothing and then running off big plays or doing well when teams are tiring, whereas last week he seemed to do it from the beginning. So it'll be good for them if he can keep up his beast mode, basically.
Yeah, both of these teams have run the ball well, so we could get quite a quick game. To be honest, when it comes to the scoring, so yeah, we'll see. But they've definitely run the ball well. Josh Allen and Lamar are probably going to run all over the place, so should be an exciting game. In terms of best bets, speaking of rushing, our fearless overlord Tim has gone for Josh Allen over 35.5 rushing yards. I think he's hit this in every week but 1 so far in the season. I think he hit 6 of the last 8 if you include the playoffs and regular season last week. So expect him to run around. I think this is a pretty good bet, to be honest. He tends to run more in the big games, and I think Sunday Night Football against the Ravens definitely counts as a big game. So yeah, he's gone for Josh Allen. What's your best bet for game of the week?
Yeah, as you alluded to, one of us going back to the well this week. I've gone for Justice Hill over 13.5 receiving yards. Same reasoning as for the last couple of weeks, frankly. He's used in the passing game a lot. He hit 20 yards last week. He's had 50 against the Chiefs in week 1. He had a couple of receptions in the one that he didn't hit the target. But yeah, again, should be a high scoring game. I think it's going to be back and forth, and they do like Justice Hill in that passing game. And the line's only gone up a couple of points. He was 10.5 when we did the pod on Thursday last week. He hit 12.5 on the Saturday, and then he was 13.5 by the time the game came around on Sunday. He's starting at 13.5 this week, so I guess the earlier you get on, the better, because it does seem like he's getting better up every week on this one. So yeah, try and get the 13.5 if you can.
Yeah, definitely. If he keeps going over, that's going to get into the 16, 17, 18 range soon. So definitely take advantage of it whilst you can. He plays a lot of third downs. They don't put Derrick Henry in on third down unless it's third and really short. So yeah, I think that's a really good bet. And I put our bets on the screen for anyone watching. And then my bet is changed a little bit with the line, but here we've got Bills plus 1.5. But like I said, you can get 2.5 in places, so make sure you shop around. But yeah, I really like the Bills. I think they've probably played like the best team in the NFL so far through 3 weeks. Josh Allen's playing extremely well, whereas I'm not quite sure I trust the Ravens' offensive line to be able to give Lamar enough time to make enough throws down the field. So yeah, I think there'll be a lot of rushing, but I do fancy in a tight game for Josh Allen and the Bills to win. Now, I personally would also bet it's now down to -2 at 5-4 on Sky Bet, so you can get the Bills -2 as favourites, because I do think this game is, you'd be gutted if you win by 1 instead of 3. I think even that is a good bet if anyone doesn't like the even odds on plus 2.5. They want to have a bit better juice and go for -2. I just think the Bills are the better team, and he tends to play pretty well in these big games on Sunday night. So yeah. What's your thoughts on mine and Tim's picks, Adam? You with either of those at all?
Well, I've just realised I've messed up the graphic a little bit. Over 1.35 receiving yards just is still on there. Yeah. I can't argue it. I honestly, I wouldn't be touching the spread, which is why I didn't. I really don't know which way this game's going because, as I say, the Ravens have been kind of up and down this year. I think I'd be tempted to go for. You can do try bet where it's either team to win by 1 to 6 points or 1 to 5 points. I'd be tempted to go with that because I do think it's going to be quite a close one. You normally get around even for that one. And yeah, Josh Allen, as you said, he's a very good rusher and does it more in the big games. I'm not as confident as you are with him in big games. Just because I think I've said a few times on this pod is I don't trust him against teams like the Bengals or the Chiefs. He always seems to come up short in those. So in Sunday night football against the Ravens, who, well, I was going to say arguably are better than the Bengals. They are better than the Bengals at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if he falls apart a little, but then again, we've seen Lamar fall apart in big games as well. So it could be a shambles come the end of this game. It could be a fantastic game. I'm obviously hoping for the second of that one, but yeah, I wouldn't argue with either of your bets. I personally wouldn't make them myself, but definitely not saying they're rubbish.
That's a good start. We'll take that. Moving off game of the week, then we'll go to our spreads of the week. This is famous last words, but I felt like there was quite a few spreads this week. But I would say they have moved around a hell of a lot. There's been more movement in the last 2 days on some of these numbers. So again, please, if you're listening, shop around. If there's a bet you like, make sure you shop in all sorts of places to see where you can find the best odds at. What's your best spread of the week for week 4, mate?
Stupidly, I've gone with Cleveland getting 2 points in Vegas. I just don't see how the Raiders can be favourites against anyone. I know they had a big comeback win against the Ravens, but I think that was anomalous. I think they're more like the team who lost to the Panthers last week. I think that's more who the Raiders are this season. There's already talk of a quarterback change for them, but it's going to be Minshew this week at least. Devontae Adams got a hamstring issue that he was out of training with yesterday. So little bits like that all kind of add up to me thinking the Raiders aren't very good. But then my argument against myself is, are the Browns any good? And the question is no, not really. But they're getting 2 points against a team that I think is inferior. I think that Watson and Cooper finally clicked a little bit last week. They had a couple of touchdowns between them. The main worry for me, which only came around today after I'd done all the stuff for this podcast, is they're without the right tackle and left tackle again, and David Njoku again. So Max Crosby could have a big game for them. We saw the Cowboys obviously blew up the Browns in week 1. But yeah, I just, this is more a fade of the Raiders rather than backing the Browns. I had a couple this week which I quite like the look of, but this was the one I settled on for some reason. So we're going with Browns +2.
Not the most confident analysis there, but I like the conviction against the Raiders for sure. As a Chiefs fan,
no, it's kind of the same as last week when I went with the Colts. It wasn't really the Colts; it was a fade of Caleb Williams. So yeah, it's the fade of the Raiders more than backing the Browns. But as I say, I just don't see how the Raiders can be favourite against anyone.
Well, it worked for you last week, so from a pod perspective, we'll hope it works. We'll hope it works again. I've gone for an underdog as well. I've gone for the Rams. I think I got it 3.5 originally in real life, but it's now down to 2.5. So if you're listening, it will be 2.5. But again, shop around on Sunday, that might get back up to 3. I think it's 2.5. I'd still bet it. I still love the spread. Sean McVay versus Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron, who's had an awful start as the offensive coordinator for this team. I just think they're so much better coached. I know there's injuries, but the Bears' offense isn't giving me enough kind of confidence to try and bet them against the Rams. I think it'll be quite an ugly game, and it could be very similar to last week, where you've got Matt Stafford having to score 10 points in the fourth quarter to cover your bet. But I just think that they'll cover it. I think they'll probably win the game. So I'm not against taking the money line, but if I've got the Rams at plus whatever, 2.5 or 3, whatever you get it at, I think that's a good bet for me. Any thoughts on that game?
Yeah, it's 3 on 365 now, so it's bounced back to that,
Cool.
and 13-10 for the money line. Yeah, this was the other one I was really interested in this week, but the last time I went with a Rams game, when I thought the line was wrong, they got absolutely destroyed by the Cardinals. So I kind of scared myself off it because history really, really kicked me in the ass last time. So yeah, I've gone. That's why I went with that one. But yeah, I do like the Rams. Obviously, we're big Rams fans on this podcast, and there's a lot of props in that game, which I'd probably go with. The Tutu Atwell one is really good. Jordan Whittington at least got a little bit as well. So yeah, receiving lines for guys that aren't well known is probably a decent place to hit that one as well, because the Bears defense has been the best part of their game, but it can't do it all. My only worry is that the Rams don't really have any pass rush, so even with a terrible offensive line of the Bears, which if you saw the video that Baldinger put out of all of them falling over on the 1 yard line was hilarious. I'm not sure the Rams have got the players to even take advantage of that at the moment, but yeah, if anyone can do it in the fourth quarter, it's Matthew Stafford, and we saw last week he did it against a far better team than this Bears team. So yeah, I'm rooting for you because I do like the Rams, and I do think they're a fun team to watch. And as I say, this is kind of my second best.
Yeah, I think if they get to 2-2 with the injuries they've got, it's a great start to the season. And anyone that's got Rams to make the playoff, second in the division, sort of bets will feel a lot more confident if they go into after this being 2-2. I think Jared Verse might get some pass rush in this game, but I'm with you. The rest of it is a bit non-existent at the moment for the Rams defensive line. In terms of Tim's best bet, he's gone for the Texans -6.5 against the Jags. Again, he doesn't provide us with any context. I like guessing Tim's thoughts, and Tim's thoughts, I think, would be the Jags are a complete disaster. I would imagine, because I don't think it's probably confidence in the Texans. It's probably an anti-Jag stance. But yeah, I personally wouldn't bet it. Just kind of a bit worried about the Texans as well, and it is a big line. I think they'll probably win the game, but it wouldn't shock me if they won by field goal or by 2 field goals. Their offensive coordinator's also had a bit of a dodgy start to the season, but yeah, it's very hard to be any. I picked Jags on 2 different podcasts to cover this spread, so I'm not going to do it on a third and make myself look like a fool. But I could see why Tim's picked this, because Monday night was a bit of a disaster for the Jags.
Yeah, they were shocking. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think the Texans have started as well as I would have thought they would. I'm sure there was news on Tank Dell this week. I think he was missing or questionable. I can't remember entirely. So that's part of their offense gone. Joe Mixon apparently back at practice today, so they may have him back in the running game. But without that last week, they seem to, well, they obviously struggled against Vikings. So yeah, despite the Jags being terrible, it is a divisional game. So yeah, I wouldn't be taking the 6.5 personally, but yeah, I see why.
Yeah, definitely. Any other spreads? I know you mentioned the Rams as a second one you like. Any others you fancy, or was it just those 2?
No, there are some. I do feel like there's a few more around this week which are a little bit more tempting. But I couldn't go Saints, Falcons, Eagles, Bucks. Again, I can't do that because I don't know if AJ Brown is playing. The Eagles then don't have wide receivers, which kind of hurts them. I'd like to go the Colts beating the Steelers, but I'm never going to do that with the way Anthony Richardson played last week. And I'm sure you're going to give us Chiefs against Chargers, obviously playing Taylor Heineke at quarterback. The 7 looks fairly tempting there.
I'm staying away from that game, if I'm honest, especially as a fan. I'm staying away from that game. I feel like Justin Herbert could rise from the ashes on Sunday morning or something and cover the spread by a point. But yeah, I'm kind of with you on the Eagles game. It's just all over the place at the moment with the missing 2 wide receivers. I think Lane Johnson's injured as well, so that's a stay away. But it does look tempting. I think I'm the other side of you on the Colts because of how bad Anthony Richardson looks. I think the Pittsburgh defense could kind of make him look quite foolish. And I think under 3 points, it just feels like the Steelers, again, could win by 3 points, to be honest. So, yeah, I do like the Steelers a little bit in that game. And then my only other one, which I feel is definitely a risky pick, is Seahawks plus 3.5 or 4.5 if you can get it against the Lions. we had a lot of pro Lions chat in the pod. I think there's some shouts for longest unbeaten team and best record and stuff like that. And I think they could still get a lot better, but Geno Smith's playing a lot better than Jared Goff, and the Seahawks defense looks legit. Bear in mind they played a weak schedule, but it looks legit. So I think they could still lose that game, but I do like them to cover and only lose by 2 or 3 points from the Seahawks. So yeah, that was the only other ones for me. Cool. Let's move to totals then, of which flashing on the screen for anyone watching. I found this one harder, if I'm honest. Don't know how you felt, mate. Did you find totals easier or harder than spreads this week?
There was a couple I liked, so probably about the same to be honest. Yeah, I like one over, one under. Going into Monday night last week, I think the unders were, I think they were 11-4. To
Yeah.
the unders, something like that last week. So yeah, it's been a tough week for points and for entertainment. Obviously, Monday night helped us out because both games went way over the totals. But yeah, it seems like we're hitting a lot of unders so far at the start of the season.
Yeah, all the passing game stats that everyone keeps talking about as well is
Mm.
yeah, isn't helping that. And I think unders are actually even better if you bet. I know we can't do this because we're recording on a Friday, but the opening lines. So as soon as they come out for the following week on the Monday or Sunday night in America, uh, they're even more. I can't remember the percent now, but they were a good 6 or 7% better than closing lines. So
Yeah.
again, if you are an under better, then you want to be going at it first thing when some of these lines come. But of course, in a year of unders, as a three, we've got 2 overs just to keep things interesting. And I don't mind going first. I've gone for Falcons and Saints over 42.5. Saints defense still looked okay last week, but I think that may be more about Jalen Hurts than it was about the Saints. The Falcons defense, Mahomes left a lot of points on the board with how he played in that game on Sunday. So I think the Saints can still score points. But I do think the Falcons can probably run all over that Saints, and Bijan didn't look great last week, but he looked really good in the first 2 weeks. So for me, I think this game will go over. I think we could see a bit of a kind of NFC South typical game where there's points on points on a turnover, there's points on special teams, there's someone has to go for 2 and it helps you get over the line. So for me, I just think this game's going to go over because of how up and down both defenses are. And I think both offenses have got enough to get some really big plays in this game. So yeah, I fancy Falcon Saints to go over 42.5 personally. What spread did you pick? Total, sorry.
Yeah, I'm the one who's picked. I'm the one who's picked the under this week. I've gone for under in the Colts and Steelers game. Obviously, we mentioned about the Steelers defense. We mentioned about how incredibly terrible Anthony Richardson was last week. Um, and yeah, I think the only way this goes over really is defensive scores. Um, I think the Colts defense isn't terrible. I think it's all right. Probably better than Chargers last week. The Steelers scored 2 touchdowns. Would have been 3, but someone went down on the 1 yard line to stop you guys from hitting the over last week, which was a bit of a killer. Right
Yep.
thing to do for the team, fair enough. But yeah, for anyone watching, and given the fact it would have put them 2 or 3 scores ahead, it wasn't really necessary. But yeah, he was obviously told
Yeah.
to. But yeah, I just think that it's going to be stagnant offenses again. It's not going to be one for the neutrals to watch. So yeah, I've gone with the under on that game, and I will go straight into Tim because this was my other one. Was over in the Bengals and Panthers game, over 46.5 now. Watching the Bengals on Monday night, as I said, the defense was absolutely terrible. Couldn't stop anyone. Jaden Daniels looked like a superstar, 92% completion percentage. He ran the ball well. He did everything he needed. He was
Mm.
finding players wide open. If it was 4th and 12, the Bengals were giving him 13 yards. It was one of those games where they just couldn't get anything stopped, and I don't see why that'll be any different this week against the Carolina team, who are enjoying having an adequate quarterback for the first time in a couple of years. So, admittedly, the Panthers are without Adam Thielen, who snapped his hamstring diving full length for a catch, because that's what happens when you get a bit older. Things get a bit tighter and fall apart. But I think Chuba Hubbard's going to run over them. I think Deontay Johnson will do his bit, and yeah, I think it's going to be scoring at both ends. We saw the Bengals offense. Joe Burrow's actually getting protected for the first time in a few years, and he's slicing teams apart. But yeah, the Bengals defense just can't stop anyone. So I think it could be a good 25, 30 points a team, and that takes us over 46.5.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I think both defenses are all over the place in that game. So I think there'll be some points. As long as you get good red zone luck and you don't get field goals, I think that game's definitely destined to be an over. But yeah, there wasn't many others I liked. I did look at the was it 43, I think, in the Green Bay game that I saw yesterday, maybe 43 and a half. Minnesota Green Bay feels a bit of a square bet with those two teams playing well on offense and Jordan Love and Sam Darnold and those two head coaches. But I do think those two head coaches are so good that they should be able to scheme up offense regardless of how both defenses are doing. I know Flores is playing well on defense as a coach, but yeah, I still think that game could go over. And yeah, I probably wouldn't bet it, but Chiefs Chargers under is definitely looking appealing. It's actually gone up that total as well today. So if you're an under better, then it might be trending in the right direction. Maybe Sunday, people that kind of just follow on Sundays start to bet the Chiefs over because it's the Chiefs, and you can get a better line. So yeah, I would carry on watching the line, see if it goes up. Because if it gets to 41 or 42, then I think it's an under, because I do think the Chiefs' defense is still really good. And if it's Heineke, then I'd be disappointed if they score 20 points. I'd be fuming. So yeah. Cool. That's it, I think, for totals. On to touchdowns, which I think is actually the worst area we've done across the board when I was looking this morning as a team, even though, again, you're getting good odds, obviously, on touchdown scorers. You've got a couple of names. Which one's your favourite? And then read out your other one as well.
Yeah, I was just looking. Maybe I have to change my name since I've not hit any this year. I don't really have a favourite between. I would go for Tuba Hubbard at 65 just because he's the plus money one. I don't like doing odds on shot. And as I was saying, Bengals defense can't stop anyone. Tuba had 117 yards, I think it was last week, on the ground and caught a receiving touchdown. So they'll have him in there. He was dominating that game until they bought him out. So he's definitely very much the one there, and he does well with Dalton at quarterback. So I think they'll be able to move the ball well, and he should get the goal line carry when they get down there. So I thought Tuba at 65, and yeah, my NB, my next best was Kyron Williams. You can get 10 to 11 on him now to score against the Bears. He got 26 touches last week. He had 24 carries for the Rams because they don't have a whole lot more. So, and they didn't even give anyone else a chance. They gave Ronnie Rivers, I think, 1 or 2 carries. Blake Corum didn't see the field again, so they're obviously going to ride him as much as they can, and he is an incredibly good running back who is good through the air as well. So, yeah, again, if they get down there, I think they're quite likely to score.
Yeah, I'm with you. Kyron was one of mine that I looked at, but I just couldn't. Yeah, the odds wasn't as good as the one that I went with. But yeah, Kyron Williams would be probably my next best as well. I don't know if that's a worry with our record. I don't think either of us have got a touchdown scorer yet. But yeah, we'll watch Kyron Williams score 3 now. That's just gonna bet the hat trick. But yeah, my best bet, I've gone closer to home. Taylor's boyfriend / the best tight end to ever live, Travis Kelce, 2 to 1. You're not going to get 2 to 1 many times in your life on Travis Kelce to score a touchdown, regardless, even if you think he's not playing well. This will be a good week. You got no Derwin James. Their linebacker room's pretty poor as well. So I think covering tight ends could be a problem for the Chargers. And one thing the Chiefs do, unfortunately, did it too much last year with Kadarius Toney, is if they hear a lot of negativity about a certain player, they will scheme up some touches for him. So I expect Patrick Mahomes to go to Travis Kelce as much as he can when Chiefs get near the red zone. So I just think 2 to 1's is too good. I know ESPN put out their kind of separation score, and I think Travis Kelce was like 6th in the NFL last week for separation. So he's getting open. He's just not getting the ball at the moment. So I'm hoping that changes against the Chargers. And if it does, he'll be back to evens probably in a week's time. That's how these touchdown markets go. So I think 2 to 1 for Kelce is as good as you're going to get. And then Tim's put a couple of names down. I haven't checked the odds. I don't know if you have, but Tim's put James Conner and Brian Robinson down. Obviously, 2 games where it could be high scoring.
Yeah, James Conner 27 randomly, and Brian Robinson was just above even. He was 65 in the same game. Obviously, it's Cardinals versus Commanders. So yeah, it'd be a nice in-game multi-game single or whatever it's called. No, that's wrong. Yeah, you know what I mean. it'll be a nice better builder for Connor and Robinson in that one. Obviously, Robinson without Eckler there this week should get a lot more of the touches. I actually had a little nibble on Jeremy McNichols because he's 14-1 on Betfred. He's around 4-1 everywhere else. So if you've got Betfred account, they're massively off on the odds there for the second running back for the Commanders this week. But yeah, James Conner at 20-27, obviously too short for me personally. I might put him in an acca, but yeah, both of them should be around there. I was just looking at Kelsey over the last 6 games against the Chargers. He scored 7 touchdowns. He scored in 4 of the 6. So yeah, he can do it against the Chargers. And as you said, without quite key defenders there, they're probably going to be a little bit weaker. And it's the word's going to get out soon that he's not doing very well and he's being distracted by things off the field. So yeah, I think he's going to prove a point at some point. And 2-1, as I said, that's ridiculous. I don't think I've ever seen Travis Kelce 2-1.
No, sometimes in the playoffs he hasn't been 2-1 to score 2 touchdowns. So to score 1, I'll definitely take that. But I do like Tim's shout of Brian Robinson at those odds. I know Jane Daniels does carry the ball a lot, but he doesn't actually do it in the red zone so far as much as you'd think. He's a bit of a decoy. I know he scored 1 against the Bengals, but the week before they had 2 RPOs where he gave it to Brian Robinson in the end rather than keep it on the read. So yeah, I think that's quite a good bet. And I do think that game could be quite high scoring if Jane Daniels plays like he did the other day. So yeah, I do like that shout. I'm with you on James Conner. I think Kyler Murray can be a bit of a touchdown vulture, and I'm a bit worried about it at those odds for James Conner. Cool. Any other props or touchdown scorers or anything you want to shout out?
No, as I say, 38.5 for Tutu Atwell. He had 93 off 4 receptions last week, and he's one of those who can get 50 in one. He's like Jamison Williams type. He'll get deep ones down the field. So he was one I looked at for the Rams. Again, just because backup receivers, you're going to get decent odds on them. So always worth a look on them. I'm going to have a quick look at Deontay Johnson receiving yards just because 62.5 is a bit too high for me. I don't mind Xavier Leggett, but he's at 35.5 now. Yeah, he's been around 20 the last few weeks. So obviously without Thielen there, his line was going to bump up a bit. I don't think it'd bump up that. Yeah, I'll miss on that one. And Saquon Barkley, I want to check his receptions because he was lined at 3.5 last week, which I thought was quite low. And obviously this week with potentially no Devonta Smith or AJ Brown, but obviously bookies know that, so they don't have a line on them at the moment. So if I was going, they don't even have a Rashad White receiving receptions line at the moment. So yeah, Rashad White and Saquon Barkley, if they're both over 3.5, then I'll probably go on both of them in the Eagles-Bucks game.
Yeah, I quite like Josh Allen as well to score a touchdown, but I didn't want to focus too much on that game because we did it earlier. But his odds are terrible. So again, that's only maybe if you're putting it in with a couple of others just to boost the odds on those. Travis Kelce, by the way, 4.5 receptions. That line is also quite small, but I do prefer the touchdown bet at 2-1.
Yeah.
There's no line yet on Rashee Rice's receptions either, but if that's anything under 7.5, I would take the over. He's going to get targeted a lot in that game for sure. And then I think the other one that I was thinking about was in the Bengals game. I was going to check Jamar Chase's receptions. Is he 6.5 again?
Yeah, I'd imagine. I don't tend to look at his because the Bengals are weird with their styles. They don't. It feels like you should give him everything, but they don't tend to do that, and it always worries me.
Yeah, I just think because T looked a bit all over the place last week. Yeah, he's 6.5 at evens for over, so it's odds on under. So I don't mind that over 6.5, but yeah, I do prefer the ones that we've mentioned earlier. I thought we might get a 5.5 from Chase after last week, but yeah, he's still 6.5. But yeah, cool. Any other bets, or is that you done?
Sorry, 6, 4, and 6 he's had in the 3 games so far. So yeah, it's not one I'd be risking personally, but as I say, it's do or die now for the Bengals really. So maybe they will just keep throwing it to Chase, but from history, I don't think they will.
The Panthers are bad as well, but on defense, which might help. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe that's a riskier selection. Cool. Okay, to recap then, for our bets, in terms of spread, Tim's gone for Texans -6.5, Adam's gone for Browns +2, and I've gone for Rams, I guess, +2.5 now. Now the line's changed. For total, Tim's gone over 46.5 in the Cincy Carolina game. Adam's gone under in the Steelers Indy game, and then I've gone for over 42.5 in the Falcons Saints game. And then touchdown scorers, I've gone for Travis Kelce. I think your official pick was Chuba Hubbard at 6-5 in the end. And then for Tim's, we'll say it's Brian Robinson because I prefer that to the other one. But James Conner / Brian Robinson for Tim. Cool. And that's it for our bet and preview for week 4. Please remember to gamble responsibly. Please also follow us at Full 10 Yards on Twitter /X. And then please like and subscribe as well on YouTube. That does really help us out. We're hoping we can win some money and go for a big week in week 4. But thanks for listening, everyone. We will speak to you soon.